Hello, thank you for joining me for yet another segment. My name is Kujo. Okay, let's get right into this. So I did not identify as a perfectionist up until I came to a better understanding of what the concept of perfectionism really is all about. So perfectionism is this idealistic thinking that you need to have everything at 100% certainty um, before you get started with something. That everything has to be set, before you can really get started with something, so that you have a surety that whatever you're going to start with is going to go smoothly, or be, it's going to run smoothly, right? A very silly example is that I used to have this habit of whenever I was taking notes and I made a mistake on the first line of a page, then I would want to start afresh on a new page where there weren't any mistakes. It's a very silly example, but I think it's a very basic example of what perfectionism is really all about. A good example is thinking that there is no reason for you to start off something, or you can't start off your business venture if you don't have a lot of capital. Now, let me make this disclaimer here. I do understand and I acknowledge that a lot of big businesses that exist today were required huge sums of capital. So I don't underestimate that. My point here is that I'm talking about the thinking that if you can't make, I don't know, 10,000 rand in the first month of profit, then there is no point in you starting your business or whatever it is that you want to start. That is what I'm talking about. Now, the point of discussion in this video is not exactly perfectionism, but I think it'll make a lot more sense why I'm giving this background as I go along. What I would like to talk about is overcommitment, because I think that overcommitment is a classic example of, it's a classic symptom rather, of perfectionism. So here you are, you've started your new project and you've set yourself like ridiculously high expectations or ridiculously high targets. And the reason why you do this, although most of the time it would be very unconscious, you do it because you are addicted to the adrenaline high that comes with fantasizing about the prospects of making a lot of money, or the prospects of reaching whatever it is that you want to reach. Lo and behold, you find yourself encountering hurdles that bring you back to earth. They give you a wake-up call to say, hey, you actually made really ridiculously high expectations. And then what do? You abort, or you abandon the project, only to revert to the same way of doing things, just in a different project, or in a different something else altogether, basically. So why does this happen? It happens because, the short-term reward of an adrenaline rush is a lot more pleasant to your brain than having to work hard. So you would much rather look forward to achieving whatever goal that you want to achieve, and then sit down and then fantasize about actually getting to that position, and then make really ridiculous targets for yourself, and then not actually do it, because it obviously, if these are high unrealistic targets, it means that it's going to be difficult for you to actually get the work done. All right. And I think that a lot of us are prone to overestimating our prospects or our capabilities, because we always think of ourselves as being the exception. So even if the statistics were to prove that whatever it is that you are planning to do may not necessarily be entirely realistic, oftentimes when we think of ourselves as the exception, because we think that we have enough insight, we think that we have additional information that would give us a little bit more, it would give us a boost and we would use that to our advantage and then become the exceptions. And I don't think it's surprising because, our experiences are the only ones that we know best. The experiences that we have personally, those are the experiences that we know the best, and those, most of the times, they are the only experiences that we know, right? For instance, in South Africa, the stats show that 4 out of 10 marriages do not make it to the 10-year mark. And I would imagine that for a lot of people who go into marriages, they cannot even fathom themselves as being part of this 4, because they know their spouses, because they have had perhaps all the right counseling that is required and all of those things. So they cannot even fathom themselves as being part of the 4, because they love each other, because all the other aspects of a good marriages have already been established, right? Okay, let me make this clear here. Am I against marriages? Absolutely not. I'm not anti-marriages. I'm just using this as an example. Another example is with entrepreneurship. The stats show that, once more, only 3 out of 10 startups will make it past the 10-year mark. Does this mean that we shouldn't go about and start our own, business ventures? I don't think that's exactly the point. But all I'm just saying is that I think it is important that even when we start whatever project that you want to be started off from a very realistic expectation point. Okay, so obviously this is not helpful. It is not helpful to imagine that you are the exception. You may be the exception, I'm not disputing that. But for the most part, I think it is important to be realistic in how we manage our expectations, because I think also the problem is that when we make our plans, we always use the best case scenario. We always imagine that our project or whatever it is that we have set for ourselves will follow the best case scenario, which is very seldom the case. In most instances, there are a lot of things that we encounter along the way that will then make it very difficult for us to attain the goals that we set up for ourselves. And we find that this is actually not even it's not only for the layman like myself, but even experts. I mean, even portfolio managers, people that manage huge sums of monies on stock markets, they are very prone to these things, right? So I don't think anybody is immune to overestimating their capacities or seeing themselves as being the exceptions, because our realities are the only realities that we know. And because I think it's difficult to make inferences about ourselves from the general public than it is to make inferences from the general population about ourselves. This is why we're most likely to do this. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that if, for instance, you have been in an abusive relationship, it would be a little bit more difficult to get to a point of trusting another person, because you have made an inference from your own experience that it's most likely that other people are the same way. It's a lot more difficult to take the stats from the general population and then make an inference about yourself. Great, so we need to find solutions about this. And this is where I'm going to right now. Anybody that has taken statistics in school will probably be familiar with the concept of a base rate. So what a base rate is, it simply means that if you're pregnant and your chances of having a girl child is only 50%, then that is the base rate. The base rate of having a girl child is 50%. Now, for as long as you haven't progressed far enough in your pregnancy to know what the gender of your child is, you cannot go about saying that I'm definitely going to have a girl child. So for that reason, you cannot be certain that your child is going to be a girl child, unless if there is some groundbreaking genetic modification technique that has been established that allows you to increase your chances of having a girl child, then you cannot do that. Now let's just hypothesize that this technique has been established. It has been, all the ethical, checklists have been checked, and then it has been, put into place. It's being implemented, right? And then you use this technique and then maybe the stats say that you improve your chances of having a girl child by 25% if you use this technique. So you use this technique. Now you have improved your chances of having a girl child by 25%. So you can use that additional information to pen out your child's gender, right? So you use the base rate of 50%, and then you use the additional information that you have, which is that 25% that you have, to say that, okay, now I think I expect that my child has a greater chance of being a girl, right? So why am I using this analogy? I think the concept of a base rate can still be useful in every other aspect of our lives. So if you know that you are most effective in the morning, you can use that as your base rate, and as far as planning your day, right? You cannot then say that I'm going to allocate the afternoon for most of my activities, because your base rate is the morning. Let's say maybe your base rate is between 9 and 10. Right, so you allocate most of your activities to that time, and then depending on any other additional information that you may have, then you can adjust your expectation. And I think this is a brilliant way of then managing your expectation, and also planning your projects to be a little bit more realistic, and to not overestimate your capacities or your prospects. Great. So I really hope that this has been helpful for you. If you find these videos to be helpful, please consider subscribing to my channel. Like this video if you found it helpful once more, and comment down below. Do you think I'm making any sense? Am I talking trash? If you think I'm talking trash, please kindly elaborate why. And once more, thank you so much for joining me. Goodbye.